today I've got the legend that is Jay Ball from Flowtech. We're going to talk through his journey from working in the fairgrounds, delivering newspapers, through to owning a business at 21, selling that business, living in Cyprus, coming back, starting another business, acquiring businesses, and also, starting the journey, getting sacked quite a few times as well. So, Mr. Ball, this is culmination of months of rejection that we've been able to get you in. So I appreciate you travelling in. What time did you set off today?
I set off at 6:30 this morning, straight out of Cardiff.
Well, that is early for a lot of people. You are up every day at what time?
Ideally about 5:30. Get in the gym about 5:45 and just have a good start in the morning.
So I'm in bed then. I'll get out of bed at 7, grab the kids and just do that normal existence, by which time you'll have been up for 2 hours and probably done some work and had meetings and things like that. So that's have you always had that sort of up early atom approach, or is that something that you've developed as you've got older?
I think you're either an early person starting or you're a night owl, aren't you? And for me, I like to just get up early, just get training done. I'm not bothered by anybody else because they're normally sleeping. And then I can just sort of start.
Time.
Yeah, it's my time. Kids are normally asleep, wife stays in bed. So I can just get up and I normally jump on the treadmill. I'll watch some YouTube learning educational video. And then I'll just chuck the headphones on and just do weights for an hour.
And does that help? And just kind of, I'll start at the beginning for you, but does that help mentally in terms of how you approach the day? Could you imagine if you did the Will Goodall approach of 7 o'clock, running around, then starting work? Does that kind of give you anxiety, thinking I've not had my sort of time beforehand the day starts?
Yeah, so I like routine. I'm quite a routine bunny. So I find it difficult when I'm working away, for example. I'll always make sure I've got a gym in the hotel and I just get up early, but it just knocks me. So the same with like drinking. I hate going out having long nights with you because it knocks me for a week and I just can't get up early again. So yes, in answer,
routine's key.
100%. I like routine. I like to just sort of, get up and probably, that's probably the reason why I go on holiday to Cyprus every single holiday I go on. Routine.
It's like my father-in-law. He goes to the same Italian restaurant in Prestatyn. He goes 3 times a month. And even if he's not in Prestatyn, he will drive to Prestatyn to go to that Italian restaurant. Derek's, big shout out. So when I kind of approached you for being a guest, because I've been kind of stalking you for quite a while, you said, not sure, because I will be telling you I got sacked a lot in my career at the start. I was like, okay, that could be quite interesting. We'll take that. But what we always like to do, and I like to do, is, and I'm pretty sure this will be the theme with you, when you were, if you like, growing up as a teen, what, if any, additional things did you do in terms of jobs, cash generating, sort of that, planting those seeds, if you like, for your career? What was it, a kind of a J teenager? What did you do?
I think probably like most, back in those days, it was a long time ago. Washing cars for money, just being out and, doing paper rounds, whatever I could really, just to earn some money. We came from quite a sort of, we didn't have a lot of money growing up on it. So single mother, and she, always at work in multiple jobs on it. So for me, I didn't have a lot. So therefore, that sort of gave me that hunger to always, to always want to earn, essentially. So I was working in a fairground. I think, I'm not sure you're allowed to these days, but I think I was 14 years old, £50 a day, which was brilliant money.
That's like lottery money then.
Yeah, but it was it was a 14-hour day. You started very early, you finished late at night, and you were there all day. I'd get the bike out, cycle probably 12, 15 miles to get there. And then obviously late back, cycle back as well in the dark. So probably a little bit stupid when you think about it, but we did it.
No, I think it's been a common theme that every sort of leader that I've been fortunate to interview had multiple jobs within that sort of 12 to 16 years of age. And that has definitely planted significant seeds in them that they've taken into the future work, to the extent that I'm saying to my daughter, who's 14, you're getting a job next year, because I'm thinking, God, you need to be working, because it inspires that sort of work ethic.
Yeah.
What ride did you do?
Or ride.
Yeah, at the fairground.
Oh, it was all different things. It was like the basketball hoops. It would be, chuck the ball at the coconut. It was all of those type of rides on it, really.
And was as well as doing that work there where you've seen, is it a lot of interaction coming? The sort of Andy Tatlock in Malia, which would have been a slightly different pitch, but is it sort of you're selling as well as working hard? You're trying to get people in, and
Yeah, I think that's probably, thinking about it, actually, it's probably the first insight to actually selling, and also at 15 years old, I was, really into girls. And so a fairground at night on a Friday would be the best place to meet them. So, it sort of ticked every box, really. It was the money, it was the
very, very similar to the Malia role.
Yeah.
No, that makes sense. Because that's an interesting one, obviously. And then from your mother's side to you, multiple jobs, I guess, to support you and all those things. And you seeing that as you're working kind of shows, if I don't put the effort in, there's not the rewards there, and there'll probably be other children who may be a bit more fortunate in terms of commercial parents, and you're having to do these things. How do you think you're going to keep that for your kids? Is that interesting?
Yeah, it's a really good question.
It's a different upbringing for them than for you.
I think it's a balance, because I don't want our children not to have something just because I want them to be brought up without something. But then I also want them to appreciate things as well. So I think there's a balance on it, and we're very grounded as a family. We don't really go on big lavish holidays, and we don't do big lavish things on it. But at the same time, we've got a nice home, we've got nice vehicles, and so the children obviously see that, and their friends see that. So you do obviously get that natural. They know that we're probably a little bit better off than maybe some of their friends, for example. And so I think it's about just keeping them grounded. And also, I'm a big believer of just being a totally grounded person in ourselves, and that should reflect on the children. So
it's a really good point, because when I first met you, I saw the LinkedIn stuff, the velvet suits and the gleaming J-ball thing. I thought, in our industry, there are people sometimes who are the biggest fans in terms of I've done this, I've done that, and and that's great, total respect for them, but they can be not my cup of tea, if I'm honest, when I'm talking to someone. And I thought, this is going to be interesting. He's like, I bought and sold my first company, Data Calm. Totally the opposite. I can honestly say I massively misjudged you, and I think that humble side and how you are with people, it's key, isn't it? I think for you, and how you move forwards.
Yeah, I think what's in you generally stays in you, and I think I've gone through different parts of my life where I wanted those nice things and maybe a bit showy, for example, when I was a bit younger, and I think we all go through that naturally. But I think actually we some of us come out of that and actually go, look, it doesn't really matter what other people think. And for me, the most important thing for me is my family, and so very much it doesn't really matter what other people sort of see from the outside on it. It's really, for me, it's if you can just create that inner happiness, that's really all that matters.
No, I totally agree with you. And obviously, like, through your career, you had the choice of continuing in the fairground industry, which could be interesting. You could have been traveling Europe, could have been doing all sorts. But you started progressing and moving into, obviously I've done my research 20 minutes ago in terms of Halfway Warehouse. I know for a fact there will be a number of jobs and journeys within there. What was your first sort of professional job that obviously you've not put on LinkedIn?
So first professional job officially was McDonald's. I was in college. It was a part-time job on it. I was studying IT. I did it for a year, decided to have a bit of a break and from college, and I got a full-time job in KFC, so changed the burger to the chicken. And then
what's the secret recipe?
Can't tell you. And then sort of I become a team manager quite young, so I think I was 17, managing sort of 20, 30 people, I think it was. So that was my first insight to management. Left there because I really wanted a bit of a career. I wasn't hugely academic, so left there, went into Lloyds CSB, and it was a sort of customer service role, really. But they just started introducing sales through service. And all of a sudden, I just rose to the top because I just kept on selling, people, do you want to, would you like a credit card, and looking at different ways of
Why do
doing
you think
it.
you rose to the top ahead of the other people there?
Um, I've always been quite financially target motivated. And so as soon as they put a value on how much you get when you do this thing, straight away, that was goal for me. However, the reason I left Lloyds SB on it was just because the commission just wasn't enough to drive that hunger, and it wasn't enough to change. It was, pounds really for a reward, and so for me, I wanted more than that, and I wanted to strive for more really.
So when you left there, was that when you popped up at Carphone?
Yeah, so the one I haven't put on my CV is I actually joined my first sort of retail role really was Phones for You. Joined Phones for You on it. I think I was about 18, something like that on it, 18, 19. Didn't last long. I argued with my manager and I got sacked. And
Why did you get sacked?
a long time ago, but I think we just disagreed over the way something should be done. And the area manager came down and sort of said, look, you can go off to the Barry shop, which didn't really do much sales. And I was in Cardiff, Queen Street, so the main area. And I didn't want to drop my sales. So I just said, look, so I think we come to a bit of a mutual agreement where I left, but really I was pushed out quicker.
You've been one of the top performers there, I would imagine.
Yeah, I did quite well. And I moved there naturally next door, which was Carphone Warehouse.
Because Phones for You and Carphone Warehouse, if you talk about that sort of era, was booming industry. There's a number of other businesses, obviously Simon Jordan's business grew, and there was a reputation in terms of the sales approach there was very fast-paced is probably the best way I could put it, and sometimes perhaps not the right thing sold, and there's even comedies and that sort of thing. So how did you find that sort of kind of going from a structured Lloyd's sales environment to that? Are you kind of, each step you're doing, is it adding different facets to how you see and sell and building that personal identity in terms of how you see the right behaviors for selling and for products and all those different things?
Yeah, so Phones for You was proper sales. It was proper hardcore sales. You were learned how to approach somebody when they come to the shop. You had a patter. You took the phone off them as quick as you could so they sat down at your desk, because once you've got your phone, they can't leave. And so I learned some really good sales techniques on it. And I wouldn't say they're necessarily bad, just more sales focused, I would say. And then when I went to, moved into Carphone Warehouse, I brought these sales techniques, and Carphone Warehouse was a really, really clean business. It wasn't any techniques. It wasn't any sales training like that. It was all about doing what's right for the customer. You didn't get paid any more commission, depending which network, which tariff. It was very much a box bonus. And so really, I think that sort of taught me straight away, it was about doing what's right for the customer and not actually for your pocket. There was some bonuses you'd have for selling certain things, but I enjoyed that. And I think I brought in that raw sales talent from sort of the competitor Phones for You. And, because I brought in that, and because the Carphone Warehouse sort of method really was sort of standing behind your counter waiting for somebody to approach you, and the Phones for You was literally hanging outside dragging them in. And so, as you can imagine, as a 19-year-old lad, very financially focused, I was outside dragging the customers in, and I was turning up on my days off, which really upset a lot of people, because obviously I was taking commission from them really. And but I just rose to be one of those sort of top performers really in the whole company nationwide. And then went into a role for Carphone Warehouse, train other people how to sell across the UK, which was quite interesting. And then went into management with Carphone Warehouse, and I just loved everything about Carphone Warehouse. It's a shame they're not sort of really around properly anymore, but I learned so much from them, from the CEO, a guy called Charles Dunstan, how he brought down his values, how he approached it from a system and a process point of view. Just incredible business person, best business person I've ever met.
So you did that and you progressed on to the management side. There is that entrepreneurial itch though. So what was, because it's a massive business, Carphone Warehouse, and you kind of, at what point did you think actually going to be taking the risk, and how old were you when you thought I'm gonna go for it?
So I'd love to say that it was my idea, right? But I got sacked. So I become.
It's the Charles sack you. It's the joke.
No, it wasn't Charles. It wasn't Charles. But I basically, and it was a really good lesson for me, right, in life and everything else, right. And I was 20 years old, earning, not far off £100,000 a year. So as a 19-year-old guy earning a lot of money, but what happens when you're rising quickly is the sort of people that you're passing by, you get very, very jealous and very, very envious. And so there was a lot of unhappy people that I become store manager for the biggest store in Wales, and very much, any role within the company I could have really gone for. And I think what that taught me really is did something really, really silly, which was selling myself a car charger, right? And it was against the company rules, okay? But somebody who obviously I upset by taking a job that they'd obviously had their eyes on, reported me to loss prevention. I lost my job, right? And so I went from earning all this money as a 19-year-old guy thinking, what am I going to do?
Earning that sort of cash at your age, but coming from a very, working class environment.
Yeah.
That's kind of, it's understandable that you're going to probably be quite flash if you've kind of come from that lad. You want to look after your mum and you look after your family and all these things, and handling that level of cash. Were you prepared for it in terms of?
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. I wrote off a brand new Golf GTI at 19, and just things that you do, which are just, you look back and, just immature and naive on it. But do you know what? Like, everything we do is a life lesson, I was thinking.
Yeah, exactly. And so obviously you left there. So you went from, I guess, being in the bar, paying for everyone's drink, to thinking, oh, right.
I'm not sure I paid for everybody's drink, because if you know me by now,
Yeah,
I'm pretty frugal on that.
Yeah. It's definitely a Yorkshire element too.
So left Carlton Warehouse. It was obviously a bit of a thud. As a 19-year-old, you can't go back to earning that sort of money, so you've got to take a bit of a reality check on it. And couldn't get any jobs earning that sort of money. And sort of like my granddad, who was somebody I looked up to and idolized all my life, he said to me, "Look, Jay, you need to get a career, you need to get a trade." And all our family were electricians, and so he said, "You need to become an electrician." So he enrolled me in college. I went into college. I studied to become an electrician, passed my first year, so I can do domestic work, which all my engineers take the mick out on.
That reminds me, actually, I've got a job for you after this.
And during that, I passed the first year, and I just realised, I saw an opportunity, and I said to my granddad, "Look, I'm going to give up my electrical work, which he was so proud of, and I'm going to go and now do my own business, and I'm going to create this business." And that was Datacom. And I was 21 years old, just finishing college, just passed that first year, could have gone and, got a good apprenticeship, whatever. And I just had that idea. I always had that itch. I wanted my own business. I always set up, a business, whether it be window cleaning right on the weekends, whether it would be building computers for people and selling them on eBay. I always had ideas, but this was the first idea where I thought I can sell business mobile communications to businesses, because there's nobody else doing it with the customer at the heart of everything they do. And so Datacom was created. We started selling quite a lot of mobile, making some good money, hired people. I wasn't really about the money, so every pound I reinvested. I was working part-time in a bar to just make sure I had enough money. I wasn't taking very much money, and I never really did take a lot of money out of the business for the whole career, really. And that obviously evolved then into lines, calls, PBX.
When you started hiring people, so it's quite interesting when you talk about the phones for you approach, the car phone warehouse approach, where you've got two very different approaches in terms of front foot, consultative, and you kind of moving into the middle.
Yeah.
Did you have in your head what sort of person or people you wanted to hire? How important was that to you when you were growing your baby, working weekends, that you're hiring these people? How important was it, the person, as much as the kudos of we're growing, I need to hire people? Has it always been a big factor in you, in that the individuals has to be in line with your values and what you see as key?
Yeah, I think, bear in mind, I was 21, so there wasn't a lot of business sense going here. I've learned, pretty much from mistakes, really. And so I didn't have, an interview style because, I'd never interviewed somebody other than for, another employer. So I didn't really have this is what I want to achieve on it. But my first employee is a lady called Louisa, and she was with me for pretty much all of Datacom, and she's now back with me in Flowtech as well. And so she started off, very much cold calling. I can't remember what I looked for in Louisa, but what I wanted was somebody who could be personable on the phone, get me appointments, get me in front of people. I knew if I could get in front of people, I could sell what we were actually providing.
So you were, because I always see some of the businesses we talk to, there's kind of two approaches of one where you can be in your room for 6 months, 12 months, 18 months, building your business before you go out. And then there's the other one where it's been from more, and this may be you, from more sales entrepreneurial people, where it's got this idea, we do this, we need to start trading, building that, and then we'll learn through if there's issues and things, but we need to get out there, so to speak.
Definitely.
Nothing can be perfect in a room, sort of thing.
Yeah, no, I 100% agree. And I always think, look, good is great enough to launch, and then you can perfect it after. If you try to perfect something, you'll often miss that sort of, off the marks, and then all your competitors are doing it before you. So I always very much believe in, it's really just be the first to market.
And that was the sort of, I suppose, your sales part, but then you've also got, and you hide this really well, the technical side of things as well. So you can look at, you're kind of a bit unique in the industry where you're not all sales. You can do selling stuff, but you can also build blooming systems, also whatever. So you've got that kind of duality to you. And when you were kind of starting out and hiring people, at what point did you think this is exactly what I want to do? I can't be fired unless I sack myself. At what point were you kind of, this is it? This is scratching that sort of entrepreneurial urge?
Yeah, you know what? I think because I had so much failure before I'd started, I was always so fearful of failure. And so I don't think I ever really...
Oh, you still got that now?
100%. Yeah. So somebody asked me the other day what my biggest fear is, and I said failure. And they went, how can you fail? And I said, we can all fail. And so I think by, losing the job you love, which really for me was that carve my house job on it, by losing that and having a reality check of coming so far down and applying for jobs on, 15 to 20,000 pounds, that was a reality check to sort of really say to me, look, Jay, while you're on the rise, you have to look after the people you pass, and you have to support everybody on the way up on it, and just don't forget where you are. And that really, I would say, is what has 100% grounded me. It's made me the person I am on it. And very much, in answer to your question, is I think even when the business was making a lot of money, I was still taking sort of, I think, a £30,000 a year salary out of the business and keeping all the cash in the business, just because I thought, what failure could look like. So there's always been that failure.
So it's interesting that, and we'll probably see more of this as we go through your journey, that the thing you're scared of or fearful of, failure, has also been probably the biggest factor in your journey and through to owning, selling businesses, of learning from failures or challenges that you've had where it's not gone quite the way you wanted. And you always have that point, don't you, where you can go left or right, and and it's how you react to that.
Definitely.
And that's quite interesting for that. So in terms of that business then, so obviously you were there, was it 16 years, 11?
So 2007 to 2020 really is when I left on it.
So what was, during that time when you're growing that business, and this is the other thing I think that's really interesting, there is a point from a lot of our partners I speak to where it's starting to grow, reputation's good, I need to hire people or new premises, and some of the business I speak to, that's quite a dangerous part of the growth.
Yeah,
because you could hire loads of wrong people, or you can overextend yourself, or you might lose a contract that underpin things. And how did you manage that scaling up from that point? Because we see it in the alternate sector, a lot of businesses that have tried to scale up and now they're scaling back down. And how did you navigate that? Did you have, because you would have been in your 20s, did you have like an external support mechanism for you? Or was it just purely you?
Look, I just made lots of mistakes on it and just trusted my gut on a lot of things. And, we hired lots of wrong people. I could, give you loads. And, we made some, maybe some poor decisions on it. But I'm a big believer of that, even though I do fear that failure is, you still can make a decision that you can back out of. And that if you are doing something wrong, you can quickly back out of that decision. Yeah. And I think that for me is something, that I've taught our MD now is he was very much in, once you make a decision, you've got to run with it. And I'm very much like, look, if you make a decision and it's wrong, you come back and, you relook at it and assess it. But
it's not a sign of weakness, is it? I think sometimes people think, I've made that decision for good or worse, I'm going to stick to it, and they'll carry on and they'll know it's the wrong decision. Whereas having that, and probably maybe a bit of ego comes into that, where someone's like, I'm the MD, I said that, I can't change that. And to evolve someone into that way of thinking and how you've brought that is quite interesting.
Yeah, I think, there's a good word, ego, because I think, our industry has a lot of that, being quite honest. And that's the one thing I always say, like that just isn't me on it. And so I'm quite happy to sort of make a decision. It's not right. Admit that, own it, and reflect, and step back to take 2 steps forward. So I think it doesn't matter where we are even today. I'll always make a decision that I want to try, because if you want to be that thought leader and first to market, you've also got to be prepared to make some wrong decisions as well. I think as long as you don't make wrong decisions, that could lead to failure.
Yeah, it's that part of moving forwards, always wanting to move forwards, and being comfortable that sometimes there'll be slightly change or an iteration to it, and adapting. So obviously during what was your head count towards the end then? Because you
so
the largest Welsh business, youngest, you can talk to my research, Mr. Wales youth to watch, multiple accolades, multiple sort of profile within that area, probably a lot of people looking at your journey thinking, I used to fry chicken with him, or he was selling Lloyd's insurance or put phones for you. And what sort of size were you in terms of headcount managing?
So
how old were you?
Yeah, so Daycom, it was 21 till 34 years of age, and at the cusp we weren't that big. We were just short of 5 billion revenue, and we were about 50 staff on it. So in comparison to where we are today, it was small. However, the main difference of that was it was just me as a shareholder and director and my business on it.
And that's something though as well, that you've set up yourself individually. It's not, there's nothing wrong with it, but there's not, you didn't have credibility, if you like, in there to set up a business. And it wasn't people going, Jay, you're coming to set up Flowtech, thank you, here's some cash and support. And it was, who is this guy? He's left Carphone, anywhere else, and you didn't have a basis as such that you would have now, and you were 21, so automatically, and I know we've spoke about this in the past, because of your age at the time, I would imagine people would underestimate you in terms of, he's 21, I've been in this industry X. I mean, how did you deal with that sort of underestimation as you're building a business and perhaps in a room with business owners who've done 20 years and they know the way to do it, and you're not the most, your way. How did you deal with those sort of environments?
It didn't really bother me in a respect of, because, it's that ego thing. And I always remember going to a Maserati showroom, and on my business card, I always just had salesperson. I never said I was the managing director, because if a 24-year-old walked in and said the managing director, you'd probably run a mile, right? So I was always the salesperson. And so when I went in, and this principal of the showroom said to me, one day if you sell enough phones, maybe you can get a Maserati, and at the time I think I had a nice car, and I just sort of smiled and just went on with it. Whereas somebody, I think, with a big ego would sort of respond and go, well, actually, I've got.
Did that fuel the the fire in you a little bit as well. You know, and there's, you know, I've had interactions like that with people. Does that fuel the fire if someone kind of
Underestimates.
yeah,
Not really, if I'm honest. And maybe it should, right? But it just really doesn't bother me because, you know, even today, I don't.
you're comfortable with where you are, and
Yeah, I'm comfortable with who I am. I'm comfortable of where we've got to. I, it just doesn't bother me. I don't need to be the loudest person in the room. I don't need to be the center of that attention on it. I'm happy to be underestimated, you know, because ultimately it's the achievements that we do will do the talking and not the actual person just voicing
of
it.
course. And then it's pretty phenomenal for the, you know, owning a business at those ages. I think I lived at home selling broadband and going to Magaluf once a year when you were owning a business. So it's a.
Well, I did miss all those holidays. So that's the one thing my wife always says to me is you know, I didn't have a 20s because I was just work.
Yeah. So I can't remember them. So, you know, you've not missed anything. If that's any help. So as you went through there, and then see you exited or sold the business, I know there's technical terms for that. Was that something you were looking to do, or was that an approach? And, you know, or what sort of point did that come, and you kind of think, yeah, I'm quite interested in this?
Yeah. So when I sort of, you know, when I was 18, I had 3 goals in life. And one of those goals was I wanted to retire by 40. And so really what that meant is that, you know, at the time of selling, I was 34 years of age, so I wasn't ready to sell. But I always believe that if you start something, you should have an end goal as well. And otherwise, if you're not aiming where to go, how do you get there?
Yeah.
So I was a big believer of, you know, I knew I wanted to build a business and sell the business and, you know, have that financial freedom by 40. And so for me, we went out to actually raise some money for an acquisition that was local. And at the same time, we've started getting offers for the business, and it was significant amounts of money that I thought, you know, this would be silly to turn down. And I think sometimes when the opportunity is right, you've got to take that opportunity. And it's sometimes, you know, if you look at the market, it's often people sort of, they wait and they wait and they wait and they miss that opportunity, and therefore the valuation falls. And so for me, I felt that I'd got it to a very profitable stage, a very good valuation. We had considerable amount of cash in the bank on it. So for us, it was
paying yourself. That's why.
Pretty much. And so it was just, you know, when that approach came, it wasn't actually a fully financial reason I sold the business on it. It was, I felt I needed more. I needed to change. I was ready for something a bit different on it. And, you know, I always remember a conversation with Ralph, who fantastic business owner of Focus. Everyone knows Focus on it. And he said to me, when you sell your business, you know, you buy a Lamborghini. And I said, if I wanted to buy a Lamborghini, I could buy it now because I had the cash in the bank. It wasn't about the money at all. It was more I needed to challenge myself. I'd done it for sort of, you know, 14 plus years on it. I just needed something really to challenge me and to get me going, and maybe to do something as part of it, more of a team collaboration on it. So when I sold the business to Southern Communications. They come in and they didn't just want to buy the business. They wanted me to become their future chief exec, basically. And so for me, I thought, you know, I'm with a £5 million business. This is a £90 million business. It's a big step up. You know, I was taken back by it really, and it was a, you know, quite an achievement to be sort of proposed really for that. And so for me, that was a moment of, look, I can cash in, take some risk off the table. Hopefully, you know, then I can say I can't fail. But also it's a new challenge, and I needed that new challenge of something bigger, greater, that was more than just this business with just me.
So the interesting thing with that, and because it's an amazing thing to go to, obviously, but Southern Comms is a massive business into a senior role there. Amazing, but not owning your own business, not being the one responsible for all the decisions. There's probably, you're on the board, there's different stakeholders, different people that need to buy into that. How did you find going from not what I say goes, but being ultimately in charge of everything, to then being a key part of a big business, but not not having the same influence that you could do when it was your business. How did you manage that?
I was given a lot of autonomy.
Particularly as you've been sacked so many times before.
Yeah, I was given a lot of autonomy to make decisions in Southern. So I think that's what kept me there for over a year, because actually it was a very collaborative approach on it. I personally just found it a struggle to not share the same vision as the current CEO of where the market was going, what the business is doing, and the priorities in the business. And so for me, it wasn't really about me not having the overall say. I quite enjoyed actually having a board and reporting to a board and having, really robust conversations. Loved learning, because I'm a massive learn to grow advocate. And so for me, it wasn't really about, it's not my business anymore, and that was the problem. It was the fact that actually
I see the business going this way.
Yeah,
business wants to go the other way, and I'm convinced that is the right way for us to go. The way I'm
definitely. I think I very much saw comms being a product that people would buy within an IT portfolio, and I felt that we as a business needed to become really a managed service provider for IT, cyber, and communications. And at the time, the CEO didn't agree and said that's never who we're going to be, and that is a direction they're moving in now. But I was very visionary in that I knew that's exactly where the market needed to go, and that I believed that that's what we needed to do. But the problem with such a big business is it's really hard to change the direction of a large business. And so I understand it, because when you change direction, you lose focus, you get distracted, and therefore your results can obviously be impacted. As a smaller business, you can be more agile and make decisions a lot quicker.
Still can be difficult. I mean, I speak to businesses that historically would look at voice and data, and that's kind of what they've done. And now they're saying, actually, we want to become a more rounded offering. We want to do cyber, cloud, all these different things. And there's a lot more involved to it than just going to put it on the website that we sell it. There's a training expertise bit. So it's interesting. And I think, as you say, the fact that business is now on that journey, probably 5 years ago, if they'd started it, it would be a bit maybe further along, allegedly. You say allegedly, everything's all right. It's my legal training. So at that point there, so you've got a great lifestyle, really well thought of, going to be the new chief exec at some point within Southern Comms. You could go, okay, don't massively agree with this, but I'm going to play the long game, or I'm going to just sacrifice a little bit of me and just, play the game. Yeah. You didn't do that, did you?
No, it was, I was very fortunate to cash out, a good amount of money, which I invested really well in property, shares, stocks, whatnot. And all of those things were returning really good money. And so my salary, although it was, a decent salary, it didn't excite me. It didn't excite me enough to sort of sacrifice.
Sorry to cut over there, but I don't think, even if you didn't have the investments and the return on that investment, I think if you take that away, I think you would still make the same decision you did.
Yeah, 100%. I was offered equity to stay in the business, and offered, further earnouts and whatnot. And it wasn't about the money. It was, I felt I was changing, and that wasn't for the better of me or who I am.
What made you think that?
So somebody I massively respect in the industry came in one day, and Southern Comms was a very traditional, older school business on it, and got a long heritage and whatnot, and very much a white shirt, tie, suited approach. And that was never me. I hate wearing ties.
Which will not shock people.
Don't mind wearing a shirt, button-down shirt, but I'm more of a casual. I'll pop a polo shirt on. But I just can't stand wearing ties. It's just never been me. And so one day, this supplier, who I got massive respect for, came in and said to me, "Jay, why are you wearing a tie?" And I said, "That is this way, and this is the new way I've got to be now." And he said to me, "Jay, you never need to change. Be who you are. Keep an identity." And that was just the moment where I just went, what am I doing? I'm losing myself. I'm putting everything above what is important to me. And I was too focused on, the EBITDA and all those sort of numbers. And that was just never really why I got into business. And so for me, it was like a moment of stop. And I remember it was over Christmas period. I thought to myself, Jay, this is not who I am. And, I just want to get out basically. And I had no real plans. I just thought this just isn't me. I need to get out of it. And so I think over Christmas, New Year, I put my resignation in, which was a weird feeling. I didn't get sacked, but put my resignation and I said, look,
The weird feeling as well.
absolutely. And I said, look, I'm gonna leave. And wasn't obviously met with great joy, I'll be honest. However, I stayed for another month as well. So I did 4 months because COVID obviously kicked in March, which was basically when I was about to leave. And so I wanted to make sure that, the team and the customers were okay. And so I just stayed on as a bit of a consultant, really, just to make sure it was okay.
And so when you were, because again, one of the interesting things, a lot of us in our careers, when you're in a role and sometimes it's that external, you're not happy, or you're not that triggers that sort of response.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's always good for people to have that support structure that can enable you to look at things differently, because you could quite easily have gone a bit longer and become miserable or all these things, and having that. So you left there and then you decided to, was it around that time you moved to Cyprus where you go every year?
Well, I was 35 years old and I retired basically. I had nothing to do.
5 years ahead of plan.
5 years ahead of plan, yeah, which is another story. But I essentially had no plans at all. I built up a little bit of a software business in the UK on it, which was quite handy because we switched it to a track and trace in COVID, and sold it to another a company in Scotland, which I still sit on as a non-exec. Brilliant company, and so I can still see that software that I sort of helped is still growing and bringing on customers. So that's a really good journey to watch. And then I sort of realized that life is short, and I just want to go and be in where I'm most happiest. The most happiest place, being honest, is Cyprus. And we had a home there for years. We had just built a home in 2020 over there, and I just wanted to be there. And so it took me a while to convince my wife. We packed up our stuff. We put the girls. We got 2 daughters. Put the girls in school over in Cyprus on it, and we moved over, and it was probably the best 6 months of my entire life.
And what was an average day for you during that 6 months? I guess you dropped the girls off.
Yeah, so I was in the gym. I had the best personal trainer ever. I was in the gym every day. I was in the best shape of my life. I was walking the dog at 6 o'clock every morning, walking the dog at 6 p.m.
Still getting up at...
Still getting up early. Yeah, still getting up early. Training every day, eating healthy, just enjoying life. I think I had a massage every 2 weeks. I was just enjoying life. It was great. I think the sun just makes a difference to every day.
Yeah, it does. So obviously you still live in Cyprus now because that was the best 6 months of your life.
No.
You didn't decide to start another business. You didn't do any of those things. You didn't decide to move from Cyprus to near Bridgend. And that's the end of your story. It's not. So why would someone who's having the best 6 months of their life come back to the UK to start another business, but not just start another business, build a business that is acquiring other businesses into a group of 200 staff across the whole UK, thousands and thousands of customers within 2.5, 3 years? Why would you do that crazy move? Why aren't you having a massage in Cyprus as I speak to you now?
I wish I could give you a really good answer, right? But the honest answer to it is I needed purpose. And that I was missing. I felt I was, 35, 36, whatever I was then, and I just didn't have purpose. I needed more purpose than what I had at that time. I felt that I had so much to offer. I had so much to offer the industry, so much to offer customers and building a team. I was seeing my team not really that happy, customers a bit unhappy, and I was like, I need to do more than this. And I decided one day, I thought, look, I'm gonna go back to the UK, which wasn't met by my wife with excitement, I'll be honest, and I'm gonna build a small business that is going to be really customer centric and really team centric on it. And I'm just gonna focus on having a small business that will just give me a purpose. Until when I was at Southern, I met a guy called Malcolm, who is my MD now, and he was going to be my number two. So he was going to be my group MD. And I remember Southern saying to us, look, become best friends because, you're going to be number one and number two. And we literally did become best friends immediately. And what happened then was we kept in touch over that years. We'd see each other on a weekly, whatever basis. When I moved out to Cyprus, he'd come out and spend some time out there. And on one of his holidays out in Cyprus, I called him up and said, can we grab a beer? We sat down looking over the sea, and I said, I'm coming back to the UK and I would love you to do this with me, but
I want to get the boys back together.
Well, I said, look, if you want to do this, 'cause I always knew he had an entrepreneurial itch that he really wanted to scratch on it. And so I said to him, look, if you want to do this with me, Mal, I want to launch IT. That's massive for me on it. And then comms can come later. And I said, if you're going to do this, Mal, you need to move to South Wales and do.
That's the interesting thing. Because when I was chatting to Malcolm, he lived in. Apologies to Malcolm here, but it was kind of like Surrey, Essex, like
Basingstoke,
southern for me, Basingstoke.
Yeah,
and
not London, just in case he's listening.
And that's everything's London for me. And he said, Jay, they rang me, and I decided to move to Bridgend. And I was like, what? He went, yeah, I've moved from the south to Bridgend. I told my wife, said we're going to Bridgend, and just very matter of fact. So I think that's a testament to your relationship in terms of he's got a family and a career and all those things, that's putting total faith in actually working together with Jay, going to do that. It's going to make that move, which is a massive move. Either way is, a huge move. So to do that and starting a business is a big vote of confidence. I mean, how does that make you feel?
I was surprised, I'll be honest, because I didn't expect him to do it or do it as quick. So by the time we had booked our flight to get home, Malcolm had found a house in Bridgend and he was ready to go. And he had his house on the market. He had sold it before the time I'd actually landed back in the UK. And so I was a bit shocked, and probably the pressure started. And I think that was the moment I realized that he was serious, and therefore this isn't going to be a small business.
Did that give you the pressure as well that you wanted, that you weren't having for the 6 months where shit's getting real now, we're going to grow this business? And did you realize those sort of emotions you were having were things that you'd missed for those 6 months in Cyprus, where you kind of entrepreneurial juices start flowing again, if you like?
Yeah, absolutely. Like, the excitement came, but also, and this might surprise you, right? But I was like, oh my God, can I do this? I didn't believe in myself. I thought, can I do this again? Am I a one-trick pony? I've done it with Datacom. Can I do this again on it? And so actually the nerves and just anxiety set in, me thinking, I've got to basically make sure this works, because Malcolm's just giving up a managing director role, equity in Southern, right, to do this with me. And we had no customers, no business, nothing.
That's an amazing point there. Where did you both start working then? Were you just in your house? Did you have an office straight away? And at what point, when you worked through that realization of this needs to be a success, it needs to be actually a lot bigger than what I thought it would be?
Yeah.
At what point did you look at saying, actually, how can we grow really quickly? And how can we be different to what every other business has done?
Yeah. We sort of took an office off a friend of mine, and he let us use this little space, which I've got some brilliant photos and videos of today. And it was a tiny little office, and I remember the two of us just working there. We had a number of whiteboards, and we just jotted down all the things that we wanted to become businesses that we were looking to acquire. We just had all the all the aims and goals that we wanted, and we knew what we wanted to be, so we knew what the end goal would look like, and so that was obviously really clear. And as you know, Malcolm, he's a super operational person on it, and so
Was that deliberate from you in terms of, obviously he's a good guy, he's a really good friend of yours, but was it deliberate that his skill set dovetailed with your own, or was that kind of by chance?
No, I definitely agree. I think he was by far the best operational person that I'd ever met. And so, although as an MD previously, I was very operational, and Malcolm always says he's quite surprised for a salesy sort of person, I'm very operational as well. But what it meant is that when I was being operational, I was not doing my natural stance. And so therefore, to have Malcolm come in and take that operational side off
Frees
me,
you up into the,
it frees me up to allow me to then go and do what I'm really good at.
and as well as kind of being in that room, I'm assuming as well there'll be that the entrepreneurial side, the sales side is we need to start trading,
Yeah.
adding customers, black books coming out, and we're going to do that, and we'll refine as we go, and
Yeah.
learn from mistakes and things like that. I mean, is that kind of, you didn't, I'm assuming, stay in that office for 6 months and not speak to any
No.
or anything like that?
No, so
Or
really,
suppliers or
no, it was really difficult because I had a non-compete, so I couldn't speak to any customers, couldn't speak to any ex-staff, or nothing like that at all. So actually, we were starting from fresh, and so that's quite rare for people to start from fresh on it. So
how old were you then? 35?
so floated with sort of 3.5 years now. So I was about 37, 38.
37, 38. So J Ball, 21,
Yeah.
starts business. I'm assuming you didn't have an office straight away then, but you
Oh, we did.
did you?
Yeah, we were in a port cabin,
Oh,
£98 a month, 3 people rammed in there with 3 phones and 3 laptops.
amazing. I love that. But you had J Ball, 21, in a porter cabin. No connections in terms of the widest business, all these different things, to then J Ball, 37,
Going
in a
again.
slightly better office, but going again, but not starting from scratch in terms of you've got 16 years worth of scars on your back from industry experience and positives and all these things. Which one was more enjoyable? Being 37 with all that,
I think
21.
I think my favorite journey is Flowtech, without a doubt. I think it brings different challenges and whatnot, but at the same time, Datacom is what really made me who I am, and I learned a lot about myself.
The big thing I was really interested with Flowtech is there's 2 bits. So if anyone's ever watching or listening to this and they ever go to an event where you are, or if they're lucky enough to go to one of your offices, everyone is kitted out in Flowtech gear. Is that lined into, and then it's a big question, so I'm conscious of time, but does that line into a business that acquires and brings other businesses in to try and support that collective of everyone? Because sometimes when businesses are bought and the group, they're still very separate, they don't feel part of it, they're not integrated, which is the big word that flies around. Was that kind of something that's deliberate in terms of the dress code, and how do you really bring a business in North Wales culturally to a business in South Wales or a business in London, and how do you bring that and create and drive a culture?
I think it all starts with identity, and I think that's where the uniform comes into it. So I think if you look at, let's say the army is a really good example, is, they create that identity. They wear the camouflage gear, they wear the medals, they wear the berets. They're very much identity focused. And so I wanted that in Flowtech. And so from day one, I will wear exactly the same as all our team. And so you'll often see me...
No ties.
Definitely no ties. Yeah, ties are completely banned. And I sometimes have to warn Malcolm not to wear his suit jacket with his shirt, because I want that casual look for us on it. So majority of our team will wear a purple polo. And then obviously some of our team who are like our sales team, whatnot, directors, they'll often wear white shirts with the Flowtech logo on there. But ultimately, as long as they wear one or the other, I'm really easygoing on it. I'm very much, we are who we are. Our identity is so important to us on it. I remember years and years ago, I used to be a bit anti-tattoos. So tattoos sort of below the elbow.
Oh, I'm all
I
right.
would always say, you know, long sleeve. I've now got 2 tattoos on my arms, and so I'm quite easy going with it because I think times have changed and we've just got to adapt to that really, and just, you know, grow up as a
Say
business.
Phil would have struggled to work with you, wouldn't he?
Well, he did work with me, and he had to wear a long sleeve
Yeah,
shirt, so he was the one I was thinking of.
If anyone's seen Phil, he's a technical director who is covered in tattoos, but he's a
Yeah.
good guy, to be fair. So, obviously, the culture side of things. So, when you're in a position now, and I remember when we first met, you said, "Look, I love this role because Malcolm to manage people. I just manage one person, and obviously they run the direction of the business. I just get to buy businesses. It's brilliant." Do you use a lot of, and it's only you choice, Chris, but do you use a lot of the learnings you had through selling a business in terms of when you're looking to buy a business, knowing, because you've almost poached your turn gamekeeper, where you've been in that situation where you've been wanting to be acquired or being acquired.
Yeah.
Now you're being the one that's looking
Absolutely.
at a business.
Yeah, if you look at a lot of the aggregators across the comms network, for example, and the IT network, what you will see is the entrepreneurial leaders that are doing the good deals, and it's the ones who have been parachuted in by the equity companies who just can't relate with the entrepreneur. And so for me, you know, I learned a lot from the CEO at Southern in regards to how he approached acquisitions. And it wasn't about the numbers and all that sort of stuff. It was about getting to know the people and the business. And so very much when we approach a business, I'm giving away all my tricks here now, but when we approach a business, I spend the first meeting, I just want to understand the people. I want to understand the culture. I want to understand the business, how you operate. And that comes as a bit of a shock to a lot of business owners because they think you can ask
You
financial.
just want to look at a spreadsheet straight away.
Absolutely. And it doesn't matter what the financials say to us, because that's really the valuation of the business. Ultimately, we wouldn't buy a business unless the cultural alignment was there. And very much, you know, that starts from the way they treat their people all the way to how they treat their customers. And so if you've got a business that, you know, isn't looking after their people very well, and, you know, naturally that you'll find then that they don't look after their customers, and so therefore you'll just create churn, and that's not what we want. So in answer to the question, yes, I've watched, you know, good CEOs doing what I do now. I've learned from them. I've taken the bits I like from them, and that's the approach I take now with business owners, is get to know them. And I can also say, look, I understand how you're feeling, the emotional attachment you've got. This is what you're going to go through. And you've got to remember as well, a lot of business owners, when they sell their business, have never sold a business before. And so it's a first time for them. And so the worst thing you can do is having, you know, your sort of advisors sitting there, you know, sort of putting pressure on it, and your corporate numbers.
Such a personal thing, because it's your baby that you've grown, and someone's putting a value on something that is part of you almost, and that invariably is going to be a challenge to the individual selling the business, but then also for the person buying the business, the person who's built it may have an expectation that it's worth a significant amount of money because they put blood, sweat, and tears, and like you say, and that how you balance that between the two must be quite interesting.
Yeah, no, it is. Like, and the valuation is probably the fun question, really, because I'll always ask the question is what do you actually want for the business, right? I never ever get an answer. It'd always be, you know, what are you willing to pay, right? But I always like to understand, you know, because everyone's got a number in their head, but they just don't want to share it in case it's probably, you know, a low or a high ball number, right? And so, yeah, I enjoy that part of it. I enjoy, you know, getting to understand the business owner. I love just speaking to entrepreneurs. I just enjoy seeing the same passion that I have.
And this is my last second to last question on that. As a business leader and CEO, it can be, I would imagine, pretty lonely in terms of you don't answer to anybody, and you're kind of at the top, but sometimes there's no one else in the business that can relate to what you're doing, and the sort of fear that you may have of failure or keeping money in the business. No one can actively relate to that, and having someone else to speak to, or, you know, a mentor, whatever that may be, not in that business, must be really beneficial. If you're speaking to other entrepreneurs, that you kind of realize, actually, I'm on the right track, or maybe I need to refine it, and I'd not thought of that, but because you're in that position at the top, it can be quite a lonely position, I imagine, at times.
Yeah, I think I personally, the way I see a CEO position is I report to our board. And so I've got 5 people that I report to. And so we don't really have like a top down approach as a business on it. I very much, if I make a decision, I run it by our board, get their sign off. I know that I've got the trust in our board. I know that if I'm really confident on a decision, they'll go with, my sort of call on it, as long as they agree with it, of course, and they will challenge it. And if I get it wrong, trust me, they hang me up for it as well. So yes, it can be a little bit low.
Healthy, that, isn't it, though? Having
Absolutely.
been able to, and I suppose that's something that you'll have driven, because through your journey of wanting to run your own business, you're aware of how important it is for people to, through your many sackings, I would imagine a few of them are due to wanting to share an opinion, and sometimes an environment they don't like that, whereas you've probably brought that with you, I imagine, where you encourage different opinions. Ultimately, there's one decision at the end of it, but you encourage and allow people the ability to...
Absolutely, yeah. I think that I always say, allow the team to make a decision, and sometimes I'll sit back and I might think it's the wrong decision, but you've got to allow people to be empowered to make that decision, as long as they can reverse back out of it.
Yeah, I think that's the key one. And I think, a lot of people watching, listening to this, a lot of our business owners, they'll relate a lot to that, because sometimes people, they'll try and own that whole decision and not...
Definitely, yeah.
Being able to reverse out of it's important. I'm conscious I've kept you a long time, so I'm going to ask you my favourite question. If you were having a dinner, which 3 guests would you pick, dead or alive?
Okay.
And it can either be in Cyprus or Bridgend. Either or.
Cardiff, for the way.
Cardiff, yeah.
So the 3 guests, of course, yeah, I've listened to lots of podcasts. One I was listening on the way up, actually. And so for me, I've said the name already, one of them. So Charles Dunstan, total admiration for the way his values and structure and systems come through the business. So I've got, that's got my utmost respect as a CEO position on it. So definitely Charles. And I would say Sir Alex Ferguson. So as a Man United fan, I just think his leadership style is just incredible. And I just love, anything leadership wise, I just enjoy on it. And I think the way he sustained his success for so many years was just incredible.
Like the reinvention, isn't it? So there's plenty of red wine at this table then. And then who was the third?
So the third guest, right? And don't laugh at this one, but I would probably bring Dave, our FD, because if I don't bring him at the end, I'm going to have to repeat the whole conversation to him anyway. So I think it'd be really good, because Dave is like a sponge. And we just relate together so well. We just bounce off each other, and so yeah, I'd bring Dave along just so he can actually be part of that conversation, because he's a far better listener than I am.
And then you'll have Malcolm cooking the dinner. For anyone that doesn't know, Malcolm the MD, Jay has figurines for all of his directors.
They've actually just got one of me.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I've not seen it yet.
I can't wait to see that. Malcolm's has gout, I believe, but that's probably for another time. Thank you so much for taking the time. Driving up 4 hours for Tuning Channel means a huge amount, and the opportunity to talk to you is quite unique. So thank you very much.
Well, thank you for having me.
That's all right. And I would say anyone, business owners, or any people that 100% reach out to Jay and have a look through his journey. And if you are wanting to scratch that entrepreneurial urge, I'm sure you wouldn't mind
absolutely
helping and having a chat. And obviously check out Flowtech's continued growth. I think within the next couple of years, goodness knows where you'll be, but I think it's going to be quite exciting to watch that.
Thank you.
So thank you very much.
Not at all. Thank you very much for having me.
Oh, you're welcome.